Your company just licensed two Amazon Web Services tools, and both are called Amazon Q. Your HR team uses one. Your engineering team uses the other. They look identical on the invoice, and they couldn't be more different in practice. Quick hello from Stack Lessons. Now back to it. By the end of this video, you'll be able to look at any generative AI scenario and name the right Amazon Web Services service, whether it's a no-code playground, an enterprise knowledge assistant, a coding helper, or a deployable model endpoint. We covered Bedrock last episode as the managed foundation model platform. Now let's map the other doors into generative AI and the personas each one is built for. Quick refresher from last episode. Amazon Bedrock gives you serverless access to foundation models through a single API, and you pay per token with nothing running when you're idle. We drew the line between the consume side, which is Bedrock, and the build side, which is SageMaker. And Beacon Labs runs its summarizer on Bedrock specifically to keep protected health data inside a HIPAA boundary. Today, we open the other doors into generative AI on Amazon Web Services, and the whole game is telling them apart. Two of these four terms you've already met in episode 1, so I'll just anchor them briefly before we move on. Amazon Q Business and SageMaker JumpStart were both introduced there. This episode is where they get the full treatment. What's new here is Amazon Q Developer, the AI coding assistant that lives inside your editor, giving you completions, code chat, and security scans. And PartyRock, a no-code browser-based playground for prototyping generative AI apps powered by Bedrock with no Amazon Web Services account required. Amazon Web Services deliberately carved its generative AI surface into separate products so each persona gets exactly what they need. Bedrock is not the only door in. There are several, and each one was built for a different kind of person. The real skill is matching the tool to two things: who is building and how much control they need. Underneath, these services often lean on the same foundation models, but the surfaces and the audiences could not be more different. Picture 4 builders. First, the experimenter, someone with no code and no Amazon Web Services account who just wants to prototype an idea. That's PartyRock. Second, the business user, a non-technical staff member asking questions about company data, like Beacon Labs staff querying internal standard operating procedures. That's Amazon Q Business. Third, the developer, writing code in their editor and wanting completions and security scans. That's Amazon Q Developer. And fourth, the machine learning engineer who needs to deploy a model onto their own endpoint and fine-tune it inside of VPC. That's SageMaker JumpStart. 4 people, 4 tools. Get the person right and the service picks itself. Let's start with Amazon Q Business. It's a managed assistant that answers questions over your company's own connected data. You point it at sources like S3, SharePoint, Salesforce, and Jira, and it indexes what's there. When someone asks a question, it returns an answer that respects that person's permissions and cites where the answer came from. The user never picks a model. That's all hidden. This is built for IT, HR, and help desk style self-service, where non-technical staff need answers from internal documents without bothering a developer. The Amazon Web Services documentation puts it cleanly. Q Business is a fully managed, generative AI-powered assistant you configure to answer questions, summarize, generate content, and complete tasks based on your enterprise data. Notice 3 words in there that matter: fully managed, so there's no plumbing to build; permissions aware, so a user only sees answers from documents they're allowed to see; and enterprise data, meaning it works over your content, not the open internet. Those 3 attributes are exactly what makes it the enterprise knowledge answer on a scenario question. Make it concrete at Beacon Labs. Their operations team keeps asking the same kinds of questions. What's our paid time off accrual policy? What are the steps to onboard a new vendor? Today, someone has to dig through SharePoint to answer. With Q Business connected to their SharePoint library and their policy bucket in S3, a staff member just types the question in a web chat and gets a cited answer, honoring who's allowed to see what. No developer wrote a line of code, and nobody chose a model. That's the persona this service is built for. There is one detail about Q Business worth carrying forward before we move on. Q Business does not let you specify which large language model handles your requests. The model selection is made for you and hidden from both you and your users. That single limitation is what separates Q Business from Bedrock. With Bedrock, picking the model is the whole point. Keep that contrast in mind because it will show up again when we reach the decision rules. Now the other Q. Amazon Q Developer is an AI coding assistant, and it lives inside your editor. It supports VS Code, JetBrains, Visual Studio, and Eclipse. As you type, it offers inline completions. You can chat with it about your code, ask it to generate net new code, or have it explain a complex piece of logic. It also scans your code for security vulnerabilities and performs language upgrades, like migrating an old Java version to a new one. One useful fact to hold, this service used to be called Amazon Code Whisperer. If you see Code Whisperer in older material, that is Q Developer now. The official definition nails the two differentiators. When used in an editor, Q Developer provides software development assistance, chatting about code, giving inline completions, generating new code, scanning for security vulnerabilities, and making upgrades. Read that against the Q Business definition, and the split is obvious. The surface is the editor, not a web chat, and the subject is source code, not company documents. Hold on to those two words, editor and code. They're how you separate the two Q products under exam pressure. Here's why the code upgrade feature is worth calling out. Amazon Web Services reports that one enterprise used Q Developer's transformation feature to upgrade more than 1,000 production applications from Java 8 to Java 17. Look at the middle number. It averaged about 10 minutes per application. Now compare that to the bottom bar, the manual path, which typically takes a developer 2 to 3 days per application. That gap is the whole pitch of an agentic coding assistant. It doesn't just autocomplete a line, it can grind through a repetitive migration across an entire fleet. In practice, Q Business and Q Developer solve completely different problems. Q Business is for non-technical staff. The surface is a web chat. The subject is company documents, and the output is cited answers pulled from your internal knowledge base. Q Developer is for software engineers. It lives inside the editor, it understands source code, and it delivers completions, security scans, and language upgrades. The signal words reflect those real personas and real surfaces. SharePoint, HR, help desk, that's Q Business territory. IDE code, vulnerability scan, that's Q Developer. If it helps to anchor that distinction, picture two assistants both named Alex, one at the front desk searching filing cabinets, one at the engineering desk writing code alongside the team. Same brand, never the same job. Here is where the analogy needs a sharper edge. Imagine a team building an internal help tool. They describe it as helping staff get answers from company policies, but they reach for Q Developer because the word assistant made them think of a coding tool. What did they miss? The surface. Q Developer's home is the code editor, and its subject is source code. The moment the user is a non-technical staff member asking about a company document in a web chat, Q Business is the right fit. The surface is the tell, and the persona confirms it. Here's the structural insight worth pausing on. Both Q products, Q Business and Q Developer, run on Bedrock under the hood, but neither one lets you choose the underlying model. That choice is made for you and hidden from view. That is exactly what separates them from Bedrock itself, where picking the model is the whole point. JumpStart, which we move to next, goes one step further. You don't just choose the model, you own the endpoint entirely. SageMaker JumpStart is a hub of pre-trained models, foundation models, and machine learning models from providers like Meta, Mistral AI, and Hugging Face. From that hub, you deploy a model onto a dedicated SageMaker endpoint, either with a few clicks or through the Python software development kit. And before you deploy, you can fine-tune it with your own custom data. The key detail, that model runs on compute you own inside your VPC. This is the fit when a machine learning team needs real control and customization, not just API access. The official documentation puts it plainly. JumpStart provides pre-trained models for a wide range of problem types, and you can incrementally train and tune them before deployment. That phrase is the whole contrast with Bedrock. With Bedrock, you consume a model through an API as is. With JumpStart, you customize the model first, then deploy it to your own endpoint inside your VPC. You own the infrastructure, and you control the model. Back at Beacon Labs, their machine learning team wants to fine-tune a Llama 3 model on proprietary biomedical text they can't send anywhere outside. They open SageMaker Studio, browse JumpStart, and pick the Llama 3 model card. They run a fine-tuning job against their training data in S3, then deploy the result to a dedicated endpoint inside their VPC. That endpoint keeps running, and they pay for every hour it's up. But in exchange, they own every layer of the stack, the model, the data, the compute. That's the trade JumpStart offers? This next comparison shows up as a cost and control question all the time. Bedrock is serverless. There's no infrastructure to manage, you're billed per token, and it scales to zero when nobody's using it. You reach every model through one API, and it shines for sporadic or variable traffic. JumpStart deploys to a persistent endpoint, so you're billed per running instance and you pay even when it sits idle. But it runs in your VPC and you can fine-tune with custom data. That makes it the pick for continuous, high-control workloads. Sporadic and simple leans Bedrock. Steady and customized leans JumpStart. Think of it this way. Bedrock is like calling a taxi. You say where you want to go with your prompt, you pay for the trip in tokens, and when you're done, the car just disappears. No parking, no maintenance. JumpStart is like buying a car. You choose the exact model, you park it in your own garage, and you pay to keep it running whether you're driving it or not. But because it's yours, you can pop the hood and modify the engine however you like. That single image captures both the pricing difference and the control difference. Last service, PartyRock. It's a browser-based playground for building generative AI prototypes, and under the hood, it's powered by Bedrock. You describe an app in plain language, and PartyRock generates a working prototype out of connectable widgets, a text input widget, a text generation widget, and so on. The standout detail, you don't even need an Amazon Web Services account. You sign in with an Amazon Web Services Builder, ID, or a social login. It's built for product managers, students, and educators. It is not a production service. There's no VPC, no identity and access management integration. PartyRock is the Lego table at the toy store. You walk in off the street with no account, you snap some colorful blocks together, you build something and show your friends, and then you leave. Nobody expects you to ship a Lego set to production. It's a place to figure out what you want to build before you go buy the real materials. That's exactly the role PartyRock plays. Ideation and learning, not deployment. PartyRock is a prototyping tool, not a production deployment platform. It has no VPC isolation, no identity integration, and no production service level agreement. That means Any scenario with a hard requirement around network placement or production reliability rules, PartyRock out immediately. JumpStart is the service built for those constraints. The reason this distinction matters in scenario questions is that PartyRock can appear alongside JumpStart as an option, and if you don't know what PartyRock actually lacks, the choice isn't obvious. The hard rule is straightforward. Deploy inside a VPC means JumpStart, never PartyRock. Here's the mental model that ties all four together, the control ladder. On the far left is PartyRock, the lowest rung, no code and no account. Step right, and you reach the managed apps, Q Business and Q Developer, where the model is chosen for you, confirming what we just covered. Step right again to Bedrock, where you get to choose your foundation model through a serverless API. And on the far right is JumpStart, your own endpoint, your own compute, your own fine-tuning. As you move right, you gain control and customization, but you take on more effort and responsibility. The exam almost always hands you a scenario where only one rung fits. One more distinction that sneaks onto the exam: Q Business automatically selects the best large language model for each request and never exposes that choice to you. So if a scenario says the team needs to specify a particular model, for example, they insist on Claude 3.5 Sonnet or a specific Llama version, Q Business can't do that. The moment model selection becomes a requirement, you've dropped down a rung to Bedrock. Q Business is the answer when the team doesn't want to choose a model. Bedrock is the answer when they do. Let's compress this whole episode into trigger phrases you can match instantly. If the scenario says no code, no Amazon Web Services account, just experiment, that's PartyRock. If it's non-technical staff querying company documents or procedures, that's Q Business. If it's a developer and an editor wanting completions or a vulnerability scan, that's Q Developer. If it's deploy or fine-tune a model inside the VPC on a dedicated endpoint, that's JumpStart. And if it's an app developer who wants a serverless foundation model API and the freedom to choose the model, that's Bedrock. Read for the persona, and the service picks itself. Amazon Web Services didn't build 5 competing services. It built one generative AI capability and gave each persona the exact surface they need. All right, let's put your knowledge to the test. Question 1. A hospital's non-technical administrative staff need to ask plain English questions like, what is our patient data retention policy? And get cited answers pulled from documents in SharePoint and S3, respecting each employee's permissions. Nobody on the team writes code. Which service fits? Is it A, Amazon Q Developer, B, Amazon Q Business, C, SageMaker JumpStart, or D, PartyRock? Take a moment to think about it. The answer is B, Amazon Q Business. The signals line up perfectly. Non-technical staff, company documents, permissions-aware cited answers, and no code. Q Developer is for coding in an editor, JumpStart is for deploying models, and PartyRock is a no-account playground, not an enterprise data tool. Question 2. Beacon Labs' machine learning team must fine-tune an open-source foundation model on proprietary, sensitive biomedical text and run it on a dedicated endpoint entirely inside their own VPC, where they control the compute. Which service meets those requirements? A, SageMaker JumpStart, B, Amazon Q Business, C, PartyRock, or D, Amazon Q Developer. Pause here if you want more time. The right call here is A, SageMaker JumpStart. Fine-tuning with custom data, a dedicated endpoint, and running inside the VPC are the exact signals for JumpStart. PartyRock has no VPC at all, and the 2Q products neither deploy custom endpoints nor let you pick and customize the model. Question 3. A software engineer wants an assistant that provides inline code completions, explains complex functions, and scans their code for security vulnerabilities directly inside VS Code. Which service should they use? A. Amazon Q Business. B. PartyRock. C. Amazon Q Developer. Or D. SageMaker JumpStart. Lock in your answer before I give it away. This one is C. Amazon Q Developer. 2 words give it away. The surface is the editor, and the subject is source code. Both of those point at Q Developer. Q Business would be the answer only if the engineer were querying company documents instead of writing code. Question 4. A product manager with no coding experience and no Amazon Web Services account wants to quickly prototype a marketing copy generator app, then share a working link with colleagues to gather feedback. Which option best fits? A. Amazon Bedrock with a custom application. B. SageMaker JumpStart. C. Amazon Q Business. Or D. PartyRock. Got your pick? Let's see. If you said D, well done. PartyRock is the no-code, no-account playground built exactly for this. Describe an app, connect the widgets, and share a link. The other 3 all require an Amazon Web Services account and technical setup, and none of them is a shareable prototyping playground. Last one, question 5. A team building a customer-facing app has sporadic, unpredictable traffic. They want to explicitly choose a specific foundation model, Claude 3.5 Sonnet, while avoiding any charges during idle periods and managing no infrastructure. Which service is the best fit? A. SageMaker JumpStart on a dedicated endpoint. B. Amazon Bedrock with on-demand pricing. C. Amazon Q Business. Or D. PartyRock. Run the decision rule before you answer. It has to be B. Amazon Bedrock with on-demand pricing, and here's why. Bedrock is serverless, so it scales to 0 and charges nothing when idle, which matches the sporadic traffic. It also lets the team explicitly choose their model. JumpStart would bill per running instance even during idle time, and Q Business hides model selection entirely, so neither fits the requirement to pick Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Done with building Gen AI apps. SageMaker JumpStart, Amazon Q and PartyRock. Quick ask, subscribe so you don't miss the rest of the Amazon Web Services AI Practitioner prep. It also signals YouTube to share these wider. Then tell me in the comments what landed and what didn't. Got an exam on your radar I should cover next? Suggest it below. And if you change anything about the style or speed, say so. That shapes the next batch. See you in the next one.